Been a long time since I talked about some bad stuff in game shows. I mean, a lot of the times I want to try to do more nuanced stuff, more positive stuff, looking at old board games, like the ones that are right there. Yes, Deal or No Deal, the board game video village, you'll be seeing that on the channel in future months. But, seeing is that it's the end of October, trick or treat and all that stuff, well, this is the treat for all the times that the shows played a trick on us by changing the rules of the game and changing something so drastic that it wound up ruining the show. Now, I want to preface this. These are in-run format changes. These are not changes because of a revival or anything like that. So, Jeopardy 78, Card Sharks 2001, Temptation the New Sale of the Century, American Gladiators '08, those format changes will not be on this list. So, that being said, here are the top 5 worst format changes in game show history. Roll the intro.
One thing was for sure. They both believe Sparks to be a total tool.
Be an exciting contest which shows that divorced couples can still have fun together, right?
Mythological hero H-list. C. On the spot dice spin.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
The early 90s were a dark time for game shows. By the end of 1991, only 5 game shows were left standing. Wheel, Jeopardy, Price is Right, Family Feud, and Studs. I guess Love Connection counts too, so 6. So, with Feud, in 1992, they decided to expand the show to 1 hour. This is for the CBS run. And they needed another hook to it. So, thus came the Bullseye round. Now, you're thinking I'm going to be talking about the pilot version, which was worse, but no, test show episodes do not count towards this. This is what us as the viewing public got to see normally. So the whole first segment, which would have been like one single value question, became the Bullseye game to build up your bankroll. Now, the base of the jackpot to start, which was $5,000 in the regular daytime version, $10,000 in the nighttime version, got slashed by half, and then you had to build up by playing these, trying to get the number one answer questions, like 1 to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 nighttime version, 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 for the first half of the daytime version, and then the nighttime values were in the second half. Excuse me, it was so gaseous, that format. And also, what it did to the show is that everything had to be edited to an inch of its life on the nighttime version. Because even though they changed the actual main game to single, double, triple, there will be instances, and even on a lot of celebrity episodes, they had to go through 3 triple questions. So the show was edited within an inch of its life, and potential funny moments had to be cut out because there was no time. And while the game is good, it's a host-driven show, and those moments are what you remember from Family Feud. So a lot of those moments got lost. And when the show went into 1994, Ray Combs was fired, Richard Dawson came back, they played a truncated version. They changed the syndicated version of Feud to 1 hour, and so instead of 2,500, instead of 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, it was 500, 1,500, 2,500, so the max was 7,000, and the second half, the max was 14,000. Not great. When the show got canceled in 95, we thought we were done with Bullseye. Nope! John O'Hurley's version revived it in season 4 of his 4th season, and they added the car gimmick. So that was too many gimmicks the show had. You either play normally and have the car, or you do Bullseye and you do the jackpot of 30,000. Don't do both. And that version got edited within an inch of his life, even with the sudden death tiebreaker. Sometimes they had to go to two or three. They had to go to two of them in order to get the show in and somebody to reach that magical number of 300. And it was still very... the graphics were very disappointing, too, for O'Hurley's version. Because you had that big $20,000 shiny graphic for when you won the 20,000, and then it just became that little light-up thing just with the blinking small 15, 16, 17... Yeah, it's not impressive as that big gold $20,000 that's coming onto the screen. Thankfully, all of the crap was gone when Steve Harvey took over. Bullseye was gone. The car stayed until this season, where it got replaced with a trip for 5 to, like, Jamaica or Hawaii, and $10,000 cash to go on top of it. And I think that's perfectly fine. And also, with more time for the show to breathe, the hilarity of Steve Harvey's version was able to shine. So, this is why it's only number 5 on the list. Because at least the producers realized, you know what, didn't work. So, when they revived the show in '89, they didn't have it. When they tried it again, realized didn't work, moved the show to Florida. Steve Harvey's in, gave him a clean slate. And it's still one of the top syndicated shows to this day. People don't realize how big Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was when it debuted. It was water cooler talk. Did you see how much that guy won? Did you see how much of an idiot this guy was by blowing the first question? I mean, llamas? Really? Anyway, but by the time it left nighttime, because they did a lot of celebrity episodes, and plus the bubble kind of burst around that time anyways, it lasted in syndication, and it still was good, but it was a lot harder to win. There were some people who legitimately got to the $1 million question, just didn't know the answer, or didn't know they were sure enough to risk $475,000 to risk for the million. So, in order to cut costs or something, because some people, there are still a healthy amount of $50,000 winners, $100,000 winners, $250,000 winners during that time period. In order to cut costs and budget and make sure everything fit nicely without much editing, they came up with the clock format. Now, the clock had a lot of issues. It starts with 15 seconds at level 1, and the clock starts when Meredith or whoever was subbing for her that day, or Regis in the 10th anniversary shows, read the question. And with that fourth answer usually being a joke answer, the contestant was laughing a bit and had to rush in order to get the answer in. This problem was evident during Steve Harvey's week when he hosted the show. There is a big cut of Steve Harvey's time doing Millionaire. It was bad. So this got to the problem with the $500,000 question, because with only 45 seconds in level 3, nobody was risking $225,000 to go for $500,000, and you only have 45 seconds to come up with an answer. To me, the thinking about it, working it out through your head, killed it. It killed Millionaire for me. It got so bad that they had to install the Tournament of 10 to artificially give away $1 million. In order to answer the question, though, you had to give up all of your winnings up to the $25,000 level. So, if you won $100,000 and you were invited back to this Tournament of 10, you had to put up $75,000 in order to answer the question. You got your whole bank, your whole time bank, but it really didn't work. So the only person that answered the question was somebody who was only risking $25,000, not the number 1 seed who had to risk $225,000 in order to do it. And so we had an artificial million. And at the end of the 2009-2010 season, they thought about it and said, you know what, this ain't working. were cratering in ratings again. So they changed to the shuffle format, which was fine. And with the shuffle format and the way that format worked, we had a couple people actually get to the $1 million. Nobody won it, and somebody got there with both of their skips at 100,000, skipped to the $1 million. Sure, they lost the question, but they're only risking 75,000 to get to the $1 million. So it was worth it. But the clock format was a bad idea from jump. Oh, we're not done with Mark Goodson yet. He had 2 awful format changes midstream. And honestly, this one is the worst. Password is a classic game. We all know it works. I mean, the run that it's going on right now on NBC proves that the classic format works. However, in 1974, ratings were slipping a bit, and Mark Goodson decided to do an all-stars format. So instead of 2 contestants and 2 celebrities, it was 6 celebrities playing per week, and it was a really awful scoring format. Instead of playing to 25, they played to 50 because they instituted the double, or shoot the moon now in this version. They played 20-20 password, which they played 1 word for 15 seconds. You got it right, you got an additional 20 points. And from what I've heard, some of the play was pretty bad. I mean, you figure you'd get some really good password players, to show off the format. It really didn't gel. So 2 full tournaments were played. Richard Dawson won the second one. I don't remember who won the first one. But Alan Ludden on air realized that this didn't work. So after the second tournament, they announced that we're going back to basics. We're keeping some of the elements here, but with a new big money lightning round where they could win thousands of dollars in cash. And from what I've seen of that late run in 75, it was a pretty darn good change. And it made Password kind of exciting again. The only way that it left us is because it was too late. The damage had already been done by Password All-Stars, and nobody was watching the new version. Oh well. I hope we can find more episodes of that 75 run someday. This had to be on here. Absolutely had to be on here. I mean, we've all seen the clip. And it is painful as you can imagine it. Scrabble going to the spelling format. Now, in order to buzz in with the correct answer, they had to spell out the blanks in order to put in the correct answer. So, let's say the answer to the clue was stomach. ST blank blank A blank H was up. You had to say OMC stomach. Fill in the blanks. It would be $50 for each normal space, $100 for each blue space, $200 for each pink space. Sometimes it could lead to a pot that was even cheaper than the base $500 that you'd win before that format. And the problem with this is that some contestants really didn't know how to spell. And that led to a lot of problems. The Mosquitoes clip is out there. Just watch that. You'll understand why this format was a disaster. There are other episodes with the spelling format out there where they didn't run into that type of problem. But it was not fondly implemented, and it was pretty awful. It was so bad that this 4-month bit when they did the spelling format did not run on the USA Network when they aired Scrabble reruns. So that 4 months of Scrabble was deemed so bad that we're not rerunning it. That is how damning that is. So it started in April of 85. It lasted until August of 85. They reverted back to the format they had before. Blue squares were 500 bonus, pink squares 1,000 bonus. You win, you get 500. Scrabble square play for 1,500. And that format, when they reverted it, was great. And then I like the non-straddling format more than I do the straddle format. So when they had they added the bonus sprint, which was 5,000 going up by 1,000 each day. It's not one. I liked it. I also liked the 93 format, even though it was cheaper. And well, I've talked more about that in the Games of 90 video. You could take a look at that in my view of Scrabble 93. But this was bad. But there is one worse. If you want a textbook example of network meddling in the worst possible way, look no further than Jackpot in its original run on NBC. They had this great riddle idea that they used to perfection on this show. And one of the big hooks for that show is because of the target number and the multiplier. Hi, I'm Multiplier. We're going to play Five Nights at Freddy's. No. And the multiplier, you could win up to $50,000 if it rolled right. Now, it actually hit once, but they didn't get the riddle right. But it was a really, really tough riddle, so I can understand it. However, there was some big money won thanks to that format. There is one episode, the lone episode for the longest time, which was a super jackpot win of $38,750. That was great television. Lynn Bowling comes in, now is the head of NBC Daytime, focus grouped Jackpot, and really got the wrong idea from it. So, the riddles are now gone. Instead, it's straightforward questions, which took out a bit of the hilarity of the game. So it's not much fun anymore. They cheapened the top prize of $50,000, which was attempted only once but never hit. Now it's only $10,000 and made it much harder to win the super jackpot. The multiplier is gone. So the super jackpot was anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000, which meant in some instances the jackpot could be a lot higher than the super jackpot. Weird. But here's how you could win the super jackpot. If the jackpot was found, the king of the hill or queen of the hill could go for the super jackpot by running the table. If they lost, the jackpot was reset and a new game was played. This was not popular at all with anybody. I remember Adam Neediff, I think it was on his old Jeff Edwards fan page, where Jeff told Bob Stewart the story where this isn't fun anymore. This isn't Jackpot. And he was right. And the show was received so poorly that it was canceled 13 weeks later. Now, in another example of Lynn Bowling was wrong, in the 80s, there were two revivals of Jackpot. The most successful one was the Canadian version with Mike Darrow. That ran for 3 years by simply utilizing the old format. Now, the target number had instead of the multiplier, they had a regular randomized super jackpot, which is anywhere between 4,000 and like 9,900. I don't think they ever did 10,000. But that show was still fun. Then you had the revival of Jeff Edwards in 1989 with that same super jackpot format, which they had in the Canadian version, just added to 25,000. And that version was fun. Sadly, the only reason that show died was because the syndicator went bankrupt. I don't know if Jackpot would have lasted longer than it did with the original riddle format, but it was still a lot of fun to watch. But unfortunately, none of the straight question episodes are around on video. There's audio from the finale on YouTube, and I think Neediff had it first on his fan site. Just somebody ripped it and put it onto YouTube. It was a disaster listening to that finale. And if there was video of any straightforward question episode, I would have thrown it on Game Show Garbage way back when. This is a classic episode of how not to fix a game show when it absolutely didn't need fixing at all. All 5 of these formats that I talked about were fixes that didn't need to be fixed. And that's going to do it for this edition of Game Show Garbage here on Game Show Gumbo. I'm Cindy Saddleman. If you liked what you saw, leave a like on this video, thumbs it up so the algorithm does what it does. Leave a comment on what format changes you thought were pretty dire. I know some people are probably going to say the Star Wheel, but I think Dawson would have been gone anyways near the end of 78 because he was just overworked, so I don't think the wheel did the damage anyways. It's just Dawson was tired and the show was getting old. Anyway, if you want to help support the channel, subscribe. That's a good way to do it. Or if you want to back us financially, get your name in the credits, become a Patreon backer at patreon.com/GameShowGumbo. I'm Cindy Seidelman. We'll see you next time here on Game Show Gumbo.